So, have you ever used ChatGPT to help you get an email just right? Or maybe you've been scrolling online and seen one of those images that's so realistic you had to look twice, wondering, wait, is that real or is that AI? We are living right in the middle of a massive explosion of digital creation. But here's the thing, it's creating this fascinating, really important paradox. So let's break down how we got here and where this is all going.
All right, first up, we've got to get our heads around the sheer scale of the new creative tools we all have access to now. In just a few years, AI has gone from this kind of niche, techie thing to a genuinely powerful engine for creation that's available to pretty much everyone.
I mean, just look at the toolkit we have in 2026. It is absolutely massive. We're talking about AI that can generate royalty-free music for your videos just from a simple text prompt, or create short animations from a script. We can even deploy these autonomous AI agents to go off and handle really complex, multi-step tasks all by themselves. It's not just a tool anymore. For a lot of people, it's basically a creative partner.
And this creative power, it goes way beyond just spitting out text and images. AI can now produce these incredibly lifelike voices. They're so realistic that Spotify actually bought a company called Sonantic just to get their hands on this tech. And that move alone tells you just how valuable and mainstream this has all become. Heck, it can even generate entire digital people, like the virtual influencer Lil Miquela. She has millions of followers and has done campaigns with some of the biggest fashion brands on the planet.
The scale of what's being created, it's just hard to even comprehend. Right now, it's estimated that AI systems are churning out around 34 million images every single day. That is a tidal wave of synthetic content flooding our digital world, a digital flood on a scale we've just never seen before. But this is where the paradox really starts to kick in. What happens when the machine, which learns from all the data on the internet, starts learning from itself? We're moving from the what to the so what, and this is where it gets really interesting.
Well, researchers in a really important 2025 study found something staggering. They found that 74.2% of newly published web pages contained some kind of AI-generated material. Think about that. It means the very fabric of the internet, the data that all the future AIs will be trained on, is fundamentally changing right under our feet.
And this leads to a phenomenon that researchers have a name for. They call it model collapse. Okay, imagine making a photocopy of a photocopy, right? Each time you do it, you lose a little bit of detail, a little bit of sharpness. It gets fuzzier. Well, it's the same idea. When AIs learn from other AIs, they risk getting trapped in this feedback loop of sameness. They start to forget all the unique, the rare, and frankly, the wonderfully weird parts of the original human data they were trained on.
And this isn't just a theory, The data backs this up completely. Researchers who've analyzed these huge archives of the web, they've actually measured this effect. They found that the similarity of language and concepts online has been steadily climbing, with a huge jump right around the time generative AI really went mainstream. The internet is, quite literally, starting to sound the same. So, here's the crucial point. We run the risk of creating what some critics have called visual elevator music, or AI slop, a culture that's just bland, predictable, and kind of quietly rewards conformity. We're building a system that could crowd out the unique, the unconventional, and the truly human ideas that have always pushed our culture forward.
Now, this digital echo chamber doesn't just affect the stuff we see online. It's having a profound and, let's be honest, often stressful impact on the people who are actually working alongside these new machines every day.
Researchers are now actually identifying a condition they call algorithmic anxiety. You might know the feeling. It's that deep, unsettling sense that our skills, our creativity, maybe even our jobs, are being devalued by automated systems that can do what we do, only faster and cheaper. It's a very modern anxiety for our very modern workforce.
And this feeling, it's captured perfectly in this piece of advice that was shared on Reddit. It is such a stark example of what you might call cynical adaptation. It's not just about being afraid, it's about strategically checking out. I mean, why pour your heart and soul into your work if an algorithm can get 90% of the way there, and your boss doesn't seem to care about the difference?
And it isn't just individuals who are feeling this pressure. This anxiety is being felt all the way up in the boardroom. A global survey of CEOs found that 69%, so nearly 7 out of 10, believe that generative AI will require most of their employees to learn entirely new skills. The awareness is definitely there, but the path forward, well, that still feels pretty uncertain.
So is the future just this bleak competition, human versus machine? Well, not necessarily. The most promising path forward isn't really about replacement, it's about collaboration.
And that brings us to a much more hopeful idea.
See, the most effective model that's emerging is something called human in the loop. And this isn't just about having a person check the AI's homework at the end of the day. It's a fundamental partnership where the AI is brilliant at speed and scale, but we, the humans, provide the stuff that's irreplaceable: judgment, context, ethics, and strategic direction.
And this completely changes the nature of creative work. Our role shifts, right? We go from specifying every single tiny detail to being more like an explorer or a discoverer. We become curators of possibilities. The human sets the vision, the AI goes out and generates a whole landscape of options, and then the human comes back in to provide that crucial final judgment.
And this collaborative model is already leading to some incredible, mind-blowing results. Artists are using AI to create entirely new forms of expression. We've got projects that give a voice to extinct species using ecological data. An AI that designed a sculpture after being trained on the entire history of art. Concert series that use AI to bring classical music to a whole new generation. This isn't replacing human creativity, it's taking it to a whole new level.
As the AI pioneer Jaron Lanier puts it, this isn't just some feel-good utopian idea. Keeping humans at the center of AI actually makes the technology itself safer, more grounded in reality, and ultimately just better. It's a practical strategy for improving quality, not just a philosophical one.
And that brings us to our final thought. If these unbelievably powerful systems are learning from the world that we create, if they're reflecting our collective knowledge, our biases, and our creativity right back at us, then the ultimate question isn't really about what the machine is going to become. The real question is, what do we choose to show it? What version of ourselves do we want it to reflect?
Welcome back to the deep dive. I have to be honest with you.
Oh boy, here we go.
No, seriously. Usually when I sit down with these massive stacks of reports, the research papers, the tech reviews, the philosophical essays, I feel like I'm about to learn something, solid, something concrete.
Right, grounded in reality.
Exactly. But today feels entirely different. Today feels like we're standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into this endless fog, and the fog it's humming, like a deep ambient rumble just vibrating in your chest.
That is a very specific and slightly ominous way to start. But honestly, given the stack of research we have on the desk today, I don't think you're wrong to feel that way.
We are looking at the state of generative AI. And I don't mean the basic stuff, not the here's how to cheat on your middle school homework or look at this funny picture of the Pope in a puffy jacket.
Yeah, we are way past the puffy jacket.
We're so far past it. We are looking at a fundamental shift in how reality is created, how it's consumed. And this is the part that literally kept me up last night, how it might be on the verge of collapsing in on itself.
It really is the paradox of our time. We have infinite generation. On one hand, these tools that can conjure entire universes in seconds, and on the other hand, we have this mathematical certainty that if we aren't careful, the whole thing just dissolves.
The Ouroboros of decay.
Exactly. The snake eating its own tail.
Which, that sounds like a track from a heavy metal album, but apparently it's a statistical inevitability. So here is our mission for this deep dive.
Let's hear it.
We need to understand this explosion of tools, all these wild new toys we have in 2026. Then, we need to understand the ghost in the machine, how they actually work under the hood, because I still don't really get the math. And finally, we have to face the music about this collapse.
And we have to do it all without losing our minds.
Right, no promises on that front. But before we get to the cool tours, we have to start with the context. You sent me a study from Arefs, published just last year, in 2025, and I genuinely had to read the number 3 times because I thought it was a typo.
It wasn't a typo.
You know the exact one I'm talking about,
Yeah.
the analysis of newly published web pages.
Right, so Artistry did this massive crawl of the web. They looked at blogs, news sites, marketing copy, product descriptions. Effectively, they mapped the quote-unquote new internet that was built in 2025.
Okay.
And they ran all of it through deep forensic analysis to detect synthetic patterns.
And the number was?
74.2%.
74%.
Almost 3/4 of the content published on the web in that period contained significant AI-generated material.
Wait, pause. Just hold on. Does that mean 74% of the internet is fake? Like, are we telling you, the listener, that if you go online right now, the odds are 3 to 1 that you are not reading a human being's actual thoughts?
Well, it depends on how you define fake. But yes, it means that the vast majority of the text you encounter wasn't typed by human fingers on a keyboard.
Yeah.
It was generated by a token prediction engine.
That is just, wow.
And it gets deeper. Other large-scale analyses suggest
that if you look at the entire active web corpus, everything that is searchable, about 30 to 40% of the whole thing, is now synthetic.
This sounds exactly like that conspiracy theory, what was it called? The dead internet theory.
Yeah, the dead internet theory. It used to be this fringe idea, a literal conspiracy theory that started on obscure image boards years ago.
Right, the premise was that the internet had been abandoned by humans and was just bots talking to bots to generate ad revenue, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was paranoid, until it suddenly became statistically true. When you hit 74.2% saturation, the dead internet isn't a theory anymore. It's a census.
A census.
We are effectively walking through a digital city where 3 out of 4 people you bump into are holograms.
That is deeply terrifying. It makes you question everything. I mean, are we even having this conversation? Are you real?
I passed the CAPTCHA this morning, so I think I'm good.
Okay, good. Good to know. But this really sets the stakes for us today. We aren't just talking about a cool new version of Photoshop. We are talking about the very fabric of the digital world fundamentally changing its composition.
That's the hook.
Right. We have these incredible tools flooding the zone, but if the AI creates the content and then the AI trains on the internet,
It trains on itself.
then there's our snake. But before we get to the doom and gloom, we really have to talk about the bloom. Because I was playing with some of these tools mentioned in the Imagine.art and Soundverse reports, and honestly, I felt like a wizard.
It's exhilarating.
Yeah.
It really is a Cambrian explosion of creative capacity right now.
Let's unpack the toys first. We are in 2026. The text-to-video stuff, it's not those weird morphing nightmare videos from a few years ago.
Oh, the shimmer is completely gone.
I was looking at the specs for Google Veo 3.1, and the phrase that really stuck out to me in the report was physics-aware. What does that actually mean? Because cartoons have physics, right? Well, E-Coyote falls off a cliff.
Right, but while E-Coyote follows the physics of funny, gravity only works when he looks down.
True.
Veo 3.1 is entirely different. It isn't just generating a sequence of flat images that look like movement. It is actively simulating the physical world.
Simulating, like a video game.
Sort of. When you ask Veo 3.1 to show a glass of water spilling on a hardwood floor, the model actually understands the viscosity of water. It understands how light refracts through the liquid. It understands the friction of the wood grain.
So it knows how water behaves.
Yes. It calculates the splash pattern, not because it remembers a specific video as a splash it saw on YouTube, but because it has learned the mathematical relationships between liquid, gravity, and impact.
So it's not just painting a picture, it's doing math, it's calculating reality.
In a sense, yes. It creates a coherent 3D consistency. And then you have Sora 2 from OpenAI.
The heavyweight champ.
Right. And their big leap forward this year was the cameo feature.
Oh man, I saw a demo of this. It's wild. You upload a couple of selfies and suddenly you're starring in the movie.
You are the protagonist. You can drop yourself into a gritty 1940s noir detective film or a neon cyberpunk chase scene. And the lighting matches perfectly. The skin texture matches.
It's seamless.
It blurs the line between the viewer and the character completely. You aren't just watching media, you are inhabiting it.
It's pure narcissism, obviously, but it's amazing technology. And then there's Kling 2.5 Turbo, which sounds like a Street Fighter character, but the report says it's actually huge in the Asian markets.
Kling is fascinating because it shows how these models are beginning to specialize. The reviews highlight its speed, it generates much faster than Sora, but also its proficiency with Asian facial structures and complex cultural aesthetics that Western models sometimes tend to genericize.
So we have these distinct engines doing different things, but what I found really interesting in the Imagine.art report is that we aren't just logging into 5 different websites anymore. We have these massive all-in-one suites.
Aggregation. It's the natural next step in any software evolution. Imagine.art is basically a Hollywood studio running in your browser. You don't just type a prompt anymore, you use node-based workflows.
Okay, stop it there. Node-based workflows. I've seen screenshots of this interface. It looks like a giant spider web of wires connecting little gray boxes. It looks like software engineering, not art. Why would I want to do that instead of just typing, I don't know, cool explosion?
Because typing cool explosion gives you a slot machine result.
Right, you pull the lever and hope.
Exactly. You might get a great explosion, you might get a terrible one. Node-based workflows give you absolute control.
How does that work in practice?
Think of it like a recipe versus a restaurant order. Typing a prompt is just sitting down and ordering lasagna. A node-based workflow is being the chef in the kitchen.
Okay, I like that.
You have a specific box for the pasta, a box for the sauce, a box for the oven temperature. You connect them with virtual wires. If you want more cheese, You literally just tweak the slider on the cheese node without changing the pasta.
So I can control the specific isolated elements of a scene.
Exactly. You can enforce character consistency across multiple shots. You can use motion transfer.
That's the thing where I film myself and the AI character mimics me, right?
Yes. You film yourself doing a backflip in your backyard, assuming you can do a backflip, and then you plug that raw motion data into a node connected to a 3D alien model.
And the alien does my backflip.
Perfectly, with all your little physical quirks.
I mean, if I could do a backflip, I probably wouldn't be podcasting right now. But I get the point. It's digital puppetry.
It is digital puppetry, but with the cinema-grade rendering. And with tools like Google Flow, which is mentioned extensively in the DeepMind papers, you even get specific camera control. You can tell the AI, pan left, rack focus to the background, and it intrinsically understands that cinematic language.
It's just mind-blowing. But, you know, the visual stuff gets all the flashy headlines. I really want to talk about the audio, because we did a deep dive on the Soundverse report, and I feel like the audio world is quietly going through an even bigger, maybe more disruptive revolution.
Audio is interesting because it's inherently abstract. Visuals are concrete, a chair is a chair, but music is emotion.
And Soundverse claims to do text to music, but look, I've heard AI music before. Back in the day, it usually sounded like really tinny, weird elevator music.
That was 2024. The 2026 models in Soundverse use a completely different architecture. They use what they call semantic interpretation.
Break that down for us. What does semantic mean in this specific context?
Usually, software looks for rigid keywords. If you type the word sad, an old program might just look for audio files tagged with the word sad, or default to a minor key. Semantic means meaning. It means the AI actually understands the underlying vibe.
So if I type dreamy ambient background with slow piano and a sense of profound longing, it knows what longing sounds like.
Yes. It understands the acoustic properties that humans associate with that emotion. The specific reverb tails, the timing in the space between the notes, the frequency of the sub-bass pads.
So it's listening to the intent of my words, not just the literal words themselves.
Precisely. And Soundverse isn't just making a flat track that you play once. It's a full suite. It has a loop mode for game developers, so the music never has that awkward stutter when the track repeats. It has stem separation.
Now that is pure magic to me. I can take a fully generated track and just say, I hate the drums, and delete them.
Or replace them entirely. Or you can take the bass line from one AI track and seamlessly mix it with the melody of another. It's modular music creation.
And they have voice cloning too, which is great for corporate branding, but also, let's be honest, incredibly creepy.
It's the democratization of presence. You don't need to hire a professional voice actor anymore. You can clone your own voice or create a brand new synthetic brand voice that sounds exactly the same in every single video, every ad, every deep dive intro.
So, if you're listening to this right now, think about this. I don't need to know how to play the cello. I don't need to hire a film crew. I don't need a lighting director or a sound engineer.
No, you don't.
I literally just need an idea.
And that leads us directly to the analysis from the Ideation is Free article. The core argument there is that we have officially moved past tools that help you create.
Right.
A hammer helps you build a house. A camera helps you capture a moment. These new systems are tools that create for you.
That distinction feels incredibly heavy. Like, if the tool creates for me, am I still the creator? Or am I just the client asking a digital agency for a deliverable?
That is the existential question of the decade. And the data from the cognitive studies is humbling. The article mentions the alternative uses test.
I read about this. It's a standard psychological test for creativity. Right?
Exactly. You give a human subject a common object like a brick. You say, tell me 10 ways to use this brick that aren't building a wall.
Okay, let's see. Doorstop. Paperweight. Weapon.
Okay, you got 3. Not bad. But GPT-4 scored better than 91% of human subjects on this exact test.
Get out of here. 91%.
Yes. It generated far more ideas, and in blind tests, those ideas were consistently rated as more highly original and creative by human judges.
So the machine is statistically more creative than 9 out of 10 people on the street.
In terms of divergent thinking, which means generating a massive volume and variety of ideas, absolutely yes.
That stings a little bit as a human. But okay, if the machine is winning the creativity test, if it's directing the movie and writing the symphony, how is it doing it? Is there a little brain in there? Is it sitting there picturing a brick and imagining throwing it through a window? Is it thinking?
That is the ghost in the machine.
Right.
And to truly understand why this whole system might collapse, the Ouroboros effect, we teased at the start, We have to demystify the magic trick. We have to look at the math. Because I assure you, the AI is not thinking.
Okay, pop the hood for me. We have source material here from PMBRI and Datamites. How does the machine know what a brick is without seeing one?
The first thing you have to get your head around is that large language models and even the image models at their core do not see the world. They don't even see words. They see tokens.
Tokens. I hear that word thrown around constantly. Is a token just a word?
Sort of, but not exactly. It's a chunk of text. A token might be a whole short word like apple, or it might just be the ing at the end of running. The model breaks everything you type into these little numeric IDs, but the real magic happens when it takes those tokens and plops them into a high-dimensional vector.
Okay, you're losing me. High-dimensional vector, that sounds like Star Trek.
It's just geometry. Imagine a map. A regular standard map has 2 dimensions, north, south, and east, west.
Right.
You can pinpoint any city on that map using just 2 numbers, right?
Sure, latitude and longitude.
Right. Now imagine a vast library. You want to arrange all the books so that books with similar meanings are physically close to each other on the shelves. So dog should be right next to puppy, king should be near queen. But to do that perfectly for every single concept in the universe, a flat 2D map isn't enough. You need a coordinate system that captures every nuance of meaning. You need a map with thousands of dimensions,
Which my brain cannot picture at all.
no human brain can. But a computer can calculate it easily. In this massive, multi-dimensional space, the AI converts the concept of a king into a specific set of coordinates. And here's where it gets crazy. If you take the coordinates for king, mathematically subtract the coordinates for man, and add the coordinates for woman,
Wait, really? You land on the coordinates for queen?
you land exactly on queen. It's pure geometry. The model understands relationships through mathematical distance and direction. It is not reading Shakespeare. It is navigating a map of meaning.
So when I ask it to write a short story, it's just walking a path on this giant mathematical map.
Yes. The prediction engine, which is the absolute core of the AI, is effectively asking itself, given the path we have walked so far, given the tokens you fed me in the prompt, what is the statistically most likely step to take next? It is a probability machine. It is guessing.
It's a very, very expensive, very smart autocomplete.
A hyper-educated autocomplete.
Yeah?
But fundamentally, it's still just predicting the next most likely piece of data based on patterns.
Okay, I can wrap my head around that for text. But what about the images? When I ask Veo for that dreamy ambient sunset over Tokyo, it's not predicting the next word. It's making actual pixels.
That is a completely different beast. That process is called diffusion. And honestly, it is a beautiful concept. The sources we have use this brilliant analogy of ink dropping into water.
Okay, I can visualize that. Let's walk through it.
Imagine you have a crisp, pristine photograph of a dog. Now imagine you slowly start adding static to it, like old TV snow.
Visual noise.
Right, you add a little bit of noise.
Yeah.
The dog looks slightly grainy. You add more, it gets blurry. You keep adding more and more static. Eventually, the image is entirely destroyed. It is just gray sludge, pure random noise. That process is called forward diffusion. It's taking order and destroying it into chaos.
Okay, that makes sense.
The AI is trained to do the exact reverse.
Reverse diffusion.
Yes. It starts with the gray sludge, pure mathematically generated random noise, and it tries to predict, if this static used to be an image, what would that image have looked like before it was destroyed?
So it hallucinates a picture out of the static.
It effectively denoises the chaos. But it needs a guide. It needs to know what it's looking for. That is where your prompt comes in. When you type sunset, you are handing the AI a flashlight in a pitch black room. You are telling it, look specifically for the mathematical patterns of a sunset hidden inside this random noise.
So it's literally sculpting, like chipping away marble.
It's sculpting with probability. It chips away the noise that does not mathematically align with the sunset, step by step, pixel by pixel, until the sunset is fully revealed.
That's actually kind of profoundly poetic. It's finding order in chaos.
It is deeply poetic. But, and this is the crucial, but that brings us to the edge of the crisis. The entire process is stochastic.
Stochastic. Meaning what exactly?
It means it is randomly determined, but based on strict probability distributions. It means the AI is not trying to create something fundamentally new. It is mathematically trying to create something likely.
Oh!
When it draws a sunset, it draws a sunset that looks like the mathematical average of every single sunset it was ever trained on.
It mimics the crowd. It plays it safe.
It mimics the core distribution curve. And that, right there, brings us to the edge of the cliff.
The Ouroboros.
The Ouroboros.
So let me connect the dots for the listener here. We have 74.2% of the web currently being filled with AI content. That's section 1. We have AI models that learn by scraping and training on the web, that's section 2. And these models work by calculating the average or most likely output.
You see the loop forming?
The AI creates average content. Content gets published on the web. The next generation of AI scrapes the web for new training data. It trains on the output of the first AI.
The snake starts eating its own tail.
We have a paper here from Artistry titled A Closer Look at Model Collapse, and another incredibly dense one called the anti-Ouroboros effect. They use this exact term, model collapse. When I first read that, I pictured servers catching fire. Is that what it is?
No, the hardware is fine. The servers will keep running perfectly. It's reality that crashes.
Explain that. How does reality crash?
Think about human data. Real, organic human data is wonderfully messy. It has what statisticians refer to as fat tails.
Fat tails on a graph.
Exactly. Imagine a bell curve. The fat tails mean that weird, highly unlikely stuff happens at the extreme edges of human experience. If I ask 1,000 real people to draw a cat, 900 of them will draw a standard, boring cat.
Right. Pointy ears, whiskers.
But the last 100, they get weird. One person will draw a cat with bat wings. One will draw a surreal cubist cat. One will draw a cat that looks exactly like a toaster because they just have terrible motor skills.
That's the entropy, the beautiful messiness of human life.
Yes. That variance is absolutely crucial for a healthy data set. It represents the full spectrum of reality. But the AI is a probability machine. Its entire goal is to minimize error and generate the most likely output.
Right.
So when the AI is asked to draw a cat, it draws the absolute mathematically perfect average cat. It actively ignores the toaster cat. It discards the winged cat. It cuts off the fat tails of the distribution.
Shrinks the variance.
That is the exact term, variance shrinkage. Now imagine you take that perfect average AI cat and you feed it into the next generation model as training data.
Okay.
Now the new data set has absolutely 0 toaster cats in it. It only has average cats. The next model trains on that. It learns to average the average.
It's like making a copy of a copy of a copy.
And you know what happens to a paper photocopy after 10 generations?
It just turns into a blurry black smudge.
Precisely. The models simply stop producing weird, unique edge case outputs. They aggressively converge on a single repetitive, highly probable reality.
There was a study in the Patterns Journal that had just a brutally savage phrase for this phenomenon. They called the degraded output visual elevator music.
It hurts because it is so accurate. The researchers found that over time, as AI images train on AI images, they drift toward this inescapable sameness. They become painfully bland, generic. They lose all the texture of actual reality. If you look at the sequence of images from that study, they showed human faces degrading over multiple generations.
I saw that progression. Generation 1 looked like a normal person. Generation 10 started looking like a flawless, slightly unsettling plastic mannequin.
And Generation 20.
Generation 20 looked like a literal nightmare. It was just a blurry, skin-toned thumb with weird grid patterns where the eyes should be. Didn't even look human anymore.
That is model collapse in action. The AI completely loses the ability to understand the tails of the distribution. It quite literally forgets what weird looks like. And because we are rapidly polluting the entire data set, remember that Artistry, 74.2% of new content, we're effectively dumping poison into the digital water supply for the next generation of AI.
So if we do nothing, if we just let these tech companies run the engines at full speed and fill the internet with synthetic slop, we basically break the technology. We hit a hard ceiling where AI just gets progressively dumber and blander forever.
We fundamentally break its reality mirroring capability. As the entropy drops out of the training data, the model switches from generalizing, which means understanding broad concepts, to memorizing. It just starts repeating artifacts. The models will completely drift away from human reality into a model reality, a completely smooth, featureless sphere of averages.
That is deeply existential. It's like we're spending billions of dollars to build the ultimate library of human knowledge, but we're filling it with millions of books that all say the exact same average sentence.
And as a result, no one learns anything new ever again.
Okay, I am thoroughly depressed now. But we promised the listener a deep dive, not a deep depression. There has to be a way out.
There is. The paper on the anti-Ouroboros effect actually outlines a very concrete strategy. It is not hopeless.
What's the fix? How do we stop the snake from swallowing itself completely?
We have to consciously reintroduce the one thing the AI is desperately trying to eliminate.
Which is?
Entropy.
Chaos. You're saying we need more chaos in the system.
You need curated, controlled chaos.
Mm-hmm.
The researchers discovered that we can halt model collapse entirely if we introduce a selective filter. The mistake is assuming we can just automatically feed all AI-generated data back into the system on a loop. We can't. We have to violently filter it for quality and diversity. We have to manually inject surprise, randomness, and novelty back into the model's diet.
And where does that high-quality, high-entropy data come from in a world flooded with bots?
Look in the mirror.
Us. Humans.
Humans. We are the entropy. We are the chaotic variable that keeps the system alive and breathing. This connects beautifully to the concept of symbionts from the Ideation is Free article you mentioned earlier.
Symbionts, like the Venom symbiote from the comics.
A bit less parasitic and far more cooperative. The article frames the future not as a dystopia of AI replacing humans wholesale, but as humans becoming tightly integrated into the loop. The working model they propose was called diverge-converge.
Diverge-converge. Okay, walk me through how that actually looks in practice.
Think about any creative process. First, you need raw ideas, lots of them. You need brainstorming, that is divergence. AI is an absolute god at divergence. You ask for 1,000 marketing slogans for a new shoe, it gives them to you in 10 seconds flat. It creates what the study calls demonic dough, just a massive, writhing pile of raw, unshaped material.
Demonic Dough is a phenomenal band name, by the way. But okay, so the AI sprays 1,000 ideas everywhere.
Right, but 990 of those ideas are complete garbage, or they're average. Or they're that visual elevator music we talked about. Unusable. That is where the human comes in. The human is built for convergence.
We do the winnowing, we cut away the fat.
Exactly. We have the taste. We have the cultural context. We have the intuitive biological understanding of what is weird in a profound, groundbreaking way versus what is weird in a broken, useless way.
Right.
We look at the 1,000 ideas and we say, that one, that single one resonates with the human soul. Throw the rest away.
There was a specific study in the materials about poetry, about haikus, that I thought just absolutely nailed this concept.
The haiku study is the ultimate proof of concept for the symbiont theory. They had a panel of human judges blindly rate different haikus based on beauty and emotional meaning.
And how did the pure humans do?
The purely human-written haikus got a very respectable average score of 4.15 out of 5.
Solid.
The purely AI-generated haikus were rated basically about the same, sometimes a tiny bit lower, hovering around 4. But, and this is the absolutely critical data point, they tested a third group. A human used the AI to rapidly generate hundreds of haikus, and then the human curated the best ones.
They acted as the filter.
Yes. What do you think happened to the score?
It jumped to 4.56.
It blew the other two groups out of the water.
So the cyborg won.
The team won. The AI provided the massive volume and the sheer variance, but the human provided the emotional selection filter. That right there is the anti-Ouroboros strategy. The human essentially stands at the gate and says, this piece of synthetic data is beautiful and worth keeping. This one is trash, burn it. By curating, we keep the overall quality and entropy high.
So our job title officially changes from creator to editor of reality.
Exactly. And we see this bearing out in the hard corporate metrics too. Look at the sales agent study mentioned in our outline.
Oh, right, the one with the huge 61% jump.
Yes. They monitored professional sales agents using AI tools to draft emails and handle pitches. Overall, the agents using AI closed 61% more sales. That is a massive, economy-altering productivity boost. But if you look closer at the crosstabs, it tells a much more nuanced story about human value.
Who did the AI actually help the most?
It overwhelmingly helped the bottom-tier performers, the new hires, the people who struggled with structure, the ones who weren't naturally great at writing persuasive emails. The AI brought them all up to a very competent average. It radically narrowed the skill gap in the office.
But the top performers, the elite salespeople.
They didn't see nearly as much benefit.
Why not?
Because they already had the human nuance. They already possessed the intuition of how to be weird and persuasive and charismatic in exactly the right way for each specific client. The AI couldn't teach them anything about being fundamentally human.
That is weirdly validating, in a way. The machine is incredible at helping us be perfectly average, but it still takes a human to be truly exceptional.
And the report from 24/7 Talent strongly emphasizes this point. Humans must remain the human in a loop. We are the ultimate source of the entropy that keeps the whole mathematical model from collapsing into sludge. If we step away and let the machines train themselves, the elevator music takes over everything.
This feels like a really good pivot point. Because we've technically solved the engineering problem, right? Keep humans involved to curate the data and save the models. But that leaves us with a massive, looming psychological problem.
The algorithmic anxiety.
Yeah. Because if I am just the curator, if my whole job is just being the filter for the machine's ideas, do I still matter? Am I still an artist?
We have a fascinating transcript here from Jaron Lanier. And he's Jaron Lanier. He's one of the founding godfathers of virtual reality. And he always sees these technological shifts from a completely alien angle.
Lanier is a huge breath of fresh air in this space because he entirely refuses to treat AI like some magical conscious being. He blatantly calls it authorized plagiarism.
Or advanced search.
Right. He says, we have to stop acting like we've created a new species. It's just a complex mathematical mashup of everything humans have already done. But his dream, the whole reason he got into building tech decades ago, was for what he calls post-symbolic communication.
That is a very heady concept. Post-symbolic. Break that down for me and the listener. Okay. Think about how we communicate right now. If I want to tell you about a vivid dream I had last night, a dream about a massive dragon made entirely of stained glass flying over a glowing city of ice. I have to use words. I have to say dragon, glass, ice.
Symbols. Words are just symbols.
Exactly. Symbols that point to the idea in my head. And I just have to hope that your brain decodes those symbols and constructs the exact same image that my brain saw. But it's an incredibly lossy process. You might imagine a totally different looking dragon.
I am definitely imagining a different dragon than you right now.
Right. Lanier dreamed of a world using VR or AI where I don't have to use clunky words at all. I just instantly make the stained glass dragon appear in front of you. I share the raw experience directly from my mind to your eyes. I bypass the symbols entirely.
And that is kind of the ultimate promise of these new tools, isn't it? I have a wild vision in my head, and VO or imagine.art just perfectly renders it on the screen in seconds.
It is. It is a literal superpower. But Lanier is also the first to warn us about the profound cost of that superpower. He talks constantly about the danger of smoothness.
Smoothness, as opposed to what?
Friction. He and other researchers like Henry Ager warned that AI invariably creates a smoothed and shaped reality. It aggressively removes the friction of creation. It removes the struggle, the messiness, the happy accidents of painting or filming. But as we discussed with the Ouroboros effect, the friction is where the actual life is. If everything is mathematically smoothed out, if every dragon generated is just the perfect average dragon, we lose the humanity.
We lose the texture of lived experience.
And that profound loss of texture is exactly what leads to the anxiety. We have an incredibly sobering paper on algorithmic anxiety that introduces the concept of breach cascades.
That sounds like the title of a sci-fi disaster movie, The Breach Cascade.
It effectively feels like a disaster movie for modern knowledge workers. A breach cascade isn't one big dramatic moment where a shiny robot walks into your office, hands you a pink slip, and says, "Get out."
It's not the Terminator.
No, it's 1,000 microscopic cuts.
How so? Walk me through a cascade.
It starts impossibly small. First, the AI starts writing your routine daily emails. You think, great, less busy work for me.
Sure, who wants to write emails?
Then, a month later, it starts automatically scheduling all your meetings based on your habits. Then it drafts the first version of the quarterly financial report. Then it suggests the creative marketing strategy for the new campaign.
And suddenly you're sitting at your desk realizing you haven't actually used your brain to do anything original in a month.
Exactly. Slowly, day by day, the human worker feels their core sense of purpose eroding away.
Yeah.
It's not just technostress. Technostress is just being annoyed because you have to learn how to use a new software interface. This is existential. It is fundamentally questioning your own human value. You start asking, if the machine can do the strategy, the creative writing, and the logistical planning, why am I even here?
Am I just the meat-based button pusher?
You start feeling like you are just the biological bootloader for the digital intelligence.
Ouch. That hits incredibly hard, but there's a defense against this despair. We have an essay in the stack titled "In Defense of Degenerated Art." And I think we really need to hear this argument because otherwise we're all going to quit our jobs and move to the woods tomorrow.
This is a vital counter-argument. It argues that we don't need to panic. We just need to drastically redefine what the word art actually means in the 21st century.
Go on. How do they redefine it?
The author argues that the prompt itself is the artistic choice. When you adjust the node parameters in imagine.art, when you precisely tweak the lighting and the semantic mood in Soundverse, you are acting exactly like a master photographer.
A photographer? not a painter.
Think deeply about what a photographer actually does. A photographer doesn't physically paint the landscape, they don't build a mountain with their hands, they don't tell the sun where to be in the sky.
Right, they just stand there.
They stand there and they select. They choose the precise angle. They choose the focal length and the aperture. They wait for the exact right moment when the light hits the valley, and they press a button. The art is entirely in the selection.
So the argument is that AI art moves the creative act from mark-making, like physically putting wet paint on a canvas, to pure selection, choosing the right outcome from a sea of possibilities.
Exactly. It shifts the primary location of creativity from the physical hand to the discerning eye. The degenerated art argument is that as long as the intent and the curation are human, it is still authentically human art.
I want to believe that. I really do. It's a comforting thought. But there is a counterpoint nagging at the back of my mind. If I am a photographer out in the wild, I'm taking a picture of the real world. A world I didn't make sure, but a world that is fundamentally infinite and chaotic and real.
But if I am writing a prompt in Midjourney or VO,
You are taking a picture of the latent space. And that latent space is entirely owned by a massive tech corporation. And mathematically, it is finite. If the data set is a closed loop, am I truly creating something? Or am I just ordering off a very large digital menu provided by OpenAI?
I'll have the number 4 Cyber Noir Sunset with a side of acoustic guitar, please.
Exactly. That's what it feels like. Now, if the menu is essentially infinite, maybe it doesn't matter practically, but philosophically, it feels profoundly different than walking in the woods with a camera.
That is the ultimate paradox we're living in. And that is exactly why this is called a deep dive. There isn't a simple, clean answer to that anxiety.
So let's try to gently land this plane for the listener. We have covered an immense amount of ground today. We've gone from the shiny new toys of 2026 VO's physics, sound versus semantic magic, the sheer wizard powers of these nodes to the dark math of the collapse. We broke down vectors, diffusion, and the terrifying reality of the Ouroboros effect, and we eventually landed on the only viable solution: strict human curation.
It is a massive conceptual load to process.
It is, but I think the overarching story here is actually quite clear. We have built engines of infinite generation. Section 1 proved that beyond a doubt. But sections 2 and 3 showed us the hidden cost. These engines run exclusively on the refined fuel of human experience.
They burn our messy, chaotic human data to create smooth, synthetic experiences.
And if we let them run completely on their own exhaust, if we just let them gorge on synthetic data forever, they suffocate, they collapse into that perfectly average visual elevator music.
So the only way forward for our digital society is to intentionally remain the messy, entropic anchor in the system. We have to be the ones who aggressively introduce the weirdness back in. We have to be the ones who have the courage to say no to the machine.
Say no.
Yes. And that perfectly brings me to the final philosophical thought of the day. We talked at length about how ideation is free now. If ideas are truly infinite, if an AI can give you 1,000,000 flawless paintings, 1,000,000 catchy songs, 1,000,000 perfectly structured essays in a single afternoon, what becomes the scarce resource? What actually holds value in the future economy?
It clearly isn't the raw idea anymore. Ideas are cheap, ideas are everywhere.
It is taste.
Taste.
It is the uniquely human ability to choose. In a world drowning in infinite synthetic noise, the human ability to look at 10,000 perfectly generated outputs and say, this one is good, that one is bad, this one moves my soul, that one is just a tired cliche, that curation becomes the ultimate, most valuable artistic act.
Taste is the new technical skill.
Taste might be the only skill we have left. The machine can effortlessly generate all the options in the universe, but it cannot feel the result. Only we can feel the goosebumps.
I want to leave you, the listener, with a question to chew on as you go about your week. We talked about the sunset earlier, the perfect mathematically generated AI sunset.
The absolute average of all human beauty.
If an AI can generate a mathematically perfect sunset on your screen every single time you ask, better lit than any real photo, more vibrant than reality, perfectly composed to trigger your dopamine receptors, will we eventually stop looking out the window at the real one? Will the real physical sunset start to look?
Or will the real one become the absolute only thing that matters anymore? Precisely because it wasn't mathematically predicted. Precisely because tonight it might be too cloudy. Or the colors might be slightly dull.
The profound value of the flaw.
The value of the real. Because a flawed, dull sunset is the only one that wasn't decided for you by a probability curve on a server rack.
That is a thought that is going to stick with me for a long time. We are the entropy, we are the chaos, and strangely enough, that's a really good thing.
Keep it messy.
Thanks for diving into the fog with us today. Keep your eyes open out there. And maybe, seriously, go step outside and watch a real sunset tonight, even if it's an ugly one. We'll see you next time.